There it is.
I got it.
Mr. Michael Markham, thank you so much for doing this with me. I appreciate you very
Oh,
much.
I love you. It's not like I really had a choice.
well, well, isn't that interesting? Because it certainly does feel like um, freedom is a part of it, as in the individual obviously doesn't have free will in a definitional or actual sense for very many reasons that are pretty easy to see. But
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure that's how you feel. There's no free will, right?
And no one to have it.
Right. So, but it does feel as if the appearance of an individual has a free will, and
Hmm.
so to this is something that I've been kind of playing with as far as how to articulate. Um, because regardless of the appearance or the objective reality of the individual, the appearance is what seems to be interacting with already whole and complete. So it seems as if it's both to me, in that if you were to say it's already whole and complete and there is no free will, it's almost as if um, it is a claim made about logic, in that an individual says, well, no, we don't actually exist. So there is no free will. There is no freedom. This is already whole and complete. It just seems like you are whole and complete. Well, isn't it all just an illusion where it's whole and complete and free
Hmm.
as an individual just appears to be?
Of course. Of course. I think it can dawn that it's all illusion. And even that is an illusion.
Yes. I love that you said that right out of the gate, because I've got a, I wrote down uh, some of your posts from today, some of the shorter ones, because freehand I'm not doing so well. But but let me see here. This is one that kind of surprised me coming from you. Um, love is the best illusion.
Oh, I think you're frozen. You've become frozen. You're frozen in time and space. And we're still recording. Something happened, Howard. Ah, there you are. There's two of you now.
Okay, so reclaim host, stay participant, reclaim host. What happened? I think
One of those.
I I'm the worst technician in the entire world.
I don't care.
I just all of a sudden it just blanked me off there. I'm sorry about that, sir.
Oh,
So where I left you, my good fellow,
ah,
was love is the best illusion of them all.
yes.
Um, could you expand on that?
Oh, yes, I can. But anything I say is also illusory, keeping that in mind. But I know you know that.
Well, I don't know how you mean that though.
Yeah,
That's
I
kind of
know.
why I wanted to talk to you, because I think if I'm interrupting you, I know if I could just get this in real quick. The language seems to have um, definitions of them all. Like every conversation I have has its own language, so to speak,
Mhm.
and every person I speak with means something different by some of these key words, and and it changes the entire landscape. So when I'm talking to one person about love, we're talking about a completely different thing than when I'm talking about a love with another person, and etc. And the beautiful thing about that is that even though we're illusory, we are unique to the illusion, in that I don't know two people that are exactly alike.
No,
So I was just curious. Could you expand on that? And I'll shut up now.
you sweetheart. Um, yeah, love is a word. And there's no such thing as love, actually. There's no such thing as things. Or said in a different way, things exist only in the naming of them. When we believe love is an actual thing in itself, is where the confusion enters, the great muddledness of mind. There are no things. There are no separate existential things except in this objectifying human mind. I think of it as the mind and brain as synonymous, and not everyone agrees with that. And we might or might not get into that. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But for reference, say an objectifying human brain, a languaging, objectifying human brain creates a sense of separation through a shared complex language. And the language is the illusion. The language mistakes thing for actual entities. That works well in a physically manifested universe where things can be measured and there are actual things such as trees and rocks and rivers, oceans, state of Texas. Those also are arbitrary names assigned to the physical world. The complexity comes and the confusion comes when we mistake things that don't have a physical reality for things like love, happiness, hope, fear, all of those things that exist within the electrochemical reactions of the brain that exist as imaginary things. And when we try to study them using other imaginary things, we try to study words like love using other words. And Nisargadatta refers that as washing blood with blood, washing blood with blood. And that's the best analogy that I've heard. I keep trying to think of something better.
Well, it's interesting because this is where I'm kind of. And Sarah Bolger asked me to see. Do you see the world as a fabrication? Okay, she's alluding to how you're alluding to the world as a mental fabrication,
Hmm.
and you're saying things don't exist, but then you say the brain does X, Y, and Z, or the mind does X, Y, and Z, and you say the brain and the mind are synonymous, and that things are only things, and that the naming of them. So what you're saying is that the brain actually exists as a thing.
Well, this gray matter, this gray jelly in the cranium, out of which it appears to me that is the origin of thought and mentation. They can probe the brain and they can find memories by electrically stimulating a certain part here and there. They don't know what memory is. That's just another name. So there's really no such thing as memory either. But when they probe the brain with a small electrical stimulus, the brain will remember something in the fourth grade and say, oh, I am in Miss Winter's class and Danny Perko is sitting behind me. He's really a rough kid. I don't like him. It remembers all this stuff because it languages.
Yes. However, wouldn't that just be a story about a thing? I mean,
Of
because
course.
what you're saying is that the brain, it's the same thing that Nesagayata or whatever. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his name, but the blood, removing blood with blood. You're naming a thing that is the origin of all perception of things. So what you're saying is that a brain actually exists after naming it, and then it produces what you're saying is a memory that we can't even know is actual and or is real at all. So if your perception comes from this thing that you're naming a brain, isn't that just removing blood with blood? Because you're saying that things don't exist, and then all things are perceived from that very thing.
Hmm.
So how can that source be objectively verified, or how can you say that that is a thing that exists whereas another thing does not?
Well, I think you can say that rocks exist, trees exist.
How?
There is a physical, they have a corresponding physicality to them. Granted, there's no such thing as a mountain. There's no line around a mountain. Nobody knows where a mountain begins and a valley ends. But These are, there's no such place as the state of Texas. But
Well, is there a universe?
there apparently is a physically manifested universe. Uh, we have no way of knowing that. We are the brain's objectified overlay. So we have no way to verify that the universe is real or unreal, because real and unreal are also arbitrary names given to a hypothetical.
So
And
wouldn't the so wouldn't the forgive me, but I because this is where I'm confused. Wouldn't the naming of the thing called the brain, that is supposed to be the source of what seems to be, our perception of physicality, in which we can't know is objectively real, then wouldn't the idea that, or wouldn't the apparent idea of the source of these things that cannot be verified itself be just a story, just as everything else, unverifiable, and an appearance about subject and object? It's about I am thinking this. You're kind of putting an identity on a source for what may or may not be actual. Whereas, so you're calling yourself a thing, and then saying things don't exist, and then saying physicality does and doesn't exist. So what I'm saying is, isn't it just, yeah, that's where I'm confused. In that, um, what would you say a thing is?
oh gosh, it all depends on definition. Again, things exist only in the naming of them. So the word thing also is an objectified overlay. We are the objectified overlay trying to use the objectified overlay to discover its own pseudo reality. Of course, it
So
can't do that. The
so
great,
so forgive me. So what you're saying, and excuse me, because this is just what I was thinking was. So you're saying, when you're saying mind and brain is synonymous, that 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 loop of self, or mind brain, or excuse me, mind, self, brain, does not really have a tether to a reality, and that it's not necessarily that there is an object known as the brain that produces mind, that tells the self about its
mm,
reality, as
mm,
conscious awareness appears to be, but it is the story of such. And so everything within that perception would be untetherable. I mean, if you cannot objectively say that the brain exists, then none of that story is objectively real, and therefore nothing that it perceives, including the individual going through a space and time as in a lifetime, an individual, a human living a lifetime, in itself kind of a story without a tether.
mm.
So now, okay, I'm sorry.
No,
So I'm just wondering, what part of that is objectively uh, real or unreal? In that, like, isn't the only objectively real thing that we can share, as far as appearances are concerned, is that there is no objective truth?
of course, there's no such thing as truth. That's just another concept.
Okay.
We cannot grasp what we think of as reality because there's no such thing as reality. That's just another word for what we think is most often beyond our conceptual overlay. But there's nothing for us beyond the conceptual overlay. We are the conceptual overlay. So
So
we're
the
dealing.
appearance is the reality.
Oh,
The appearance of
well,
reality is the reality.
well, that'll lead down another.
Yeah, right. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Um,
I love this conversation. I'm
I
sorry.
do too. Well, I love your presence. I love this beautiful mind you have. I love how people fall in love with you. Every person I've known that has mentioned your name is loves you. You have a unique ability, I think, to pull people into the light that you are.
I hope you're right, because I'm greedy for it.
Uh,
No, I'm just kidding.
of
But
course,
I love this thing about love, and thank you so much. I mean, I'm going to take that compliment, and with and tell you that I'm honored, because everyone I talk to, everyone, so many people that I've talked to, say, have you, you need to talk to Michael Markham. And the funny thing is that as close as we have been for years now, we really never have sat down and just had a discussion. And I'm so grateful that we were able to do this now. Um, and I'll shut up now and just and I love what you're saying, and I'm just grateful, and I just want to say thank you. And as far as the love is concerned, just to get you back on that track, if you want to, I see it as a kind of a entity unto itself, and love is a force or a character that plays its own games and kind of uses everybody and the appearance of reality as it wishes. But it's only a character; it's not, an actuality.
Yes, that's true. Our whole world as personas exists not as actualities, but as named objects, frozen in time and space. The mind takes pictures of. I was talking in the Rainbows meeting today about a butterfly. It starts off as an egg, a chrysalis, a pupa. It goes through all these stages. So we freeze frame those stages, and all the time is this flowing that we can't see. There's infinite changes in the egg to become a caterpillar, infinite changes in the caterpillar to become a chrysalis. And the chrysalis turns to a mush that turns into a butterfly. So this is a flowing that we can't see except in the naming of it. So we think that each one of those is a distinct entity. And for us, it is. But there's no such thing as a chrysalis, caterpillar, egg, butterfly. It's the flow, and the butterfly lays eggs and all of this flowing. We can't picture reality that way because we are the objectified overlay. We're not separate from it. So we become the attempt to understand it. We become the trying to understand what we are when we are defined by the attempt to do that. So it's terribly confusing for seekers.
Yeah.
I hear people speak of this and quite often end with "this is it." And I think, well, that can't be true. That's just another story.
Well, I mean, from the position of an individual, it simply is a subjective claim that can't be verified. So, but it doesn't, I mean, I understand the vocabulary of it, and it's right. It is just this, but it is just this could mean just about anything. I mean, I mean, it could mean. I mean, you can say, I mean, every individual that quote unquote inhabits the apparent world, from a cabaret dancer to the general of armed forces. It is just this would mean completely different things to those apparent individuals.
Truly.
So you can say that to anybody. It's almost like a generic quip. It does. It's almost like next. It's just this next. I mean that doesn't. No. It's not. I'm not on a conveyor belt. You're not going to just. I mean that's how it kind of feels. It's like you're on this, with people that think it's already whole and complete or whatever they want to say. I love them dearly, but I really don't like getting on a conveyor belt and just having answer A to question B, just regurgitated over and over and over again, because we are not, just codes that go through it. I mean, each one of us is different. So, I mean, the thing about it is that it's almost one of these things where it's kind of it's a supermarket or a mall for people that could just put as many people through the cash register as possible. To me, it just seems like a gimmick. But it's a method to move as many people through the cash register as possible. And personally, I don't need to see that more than a couple of times. You know what I mean?
It all seems okay, but even that's another perception. This is it. It's all love. You're already enlightened. All of that is re-chewed gristle. It has no calories in it.
It absolutely is meaningless. It's completely baseless. I mean, in which in which all things are, and that's great. But you know, to be a little more relatable to the individual, you know, I see no problem with that. And maybe, you know, I mean, the thing is that there are people that go through these processes with these, you know, it's already whole kind of guys, and they just go back and back and back, and it's a beautiful thing, you know, for people that like to do that.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people that, you know, that's just not going to cut it. I mean, that's just obviously a method, you know. I mean, for customer service, you know, in that the star of the speaker is to basically you're gathering people that want to be starved, you know, whether you're a parent or not, as far as I'm concerned. A little personal touch is not going to kill you. You know what I mean?
I was at a meeting with Wayne Lickerman one time in Berkeley. I went with my friend who was a professor of philosophy, now retired. So we drove up to Berkeley from Cambria and had a wonderful time. And Wayne Lickerman gave like a 3-hour talk. And so 20 people, beautiful hillside home in tree-covered Berkeley is beautiful. And I've talked to Wayne Wickerman on the internet for several years before that. And of course, I love him, but no more than you. But at the time, that was before the vortex experience that I had. But he got through a beautiful talk, and we were all laughing, and in that after headiness of at the end of one of those that songs, and a young man dressed in a suit who had been sitting in the back stood up and said, "Sir, I understand everything you said, but could you please tell me how to become enlightened?"
I gotta hear this answer. We're gonna bottle this and then put it on the shelf.
Bottle it. Well, I'm gonna leave you hanging.
Yeah. I actually have run into a fella recently, you know, and he really surprised me. It was huge. I'd never heard anybody say anything like it, but he was dead serious, and it took me back. I was like, really? He said that everybody that took his course, which was like $1,500 or something, became enlightened, but one over the years.
But
and I said, "Are you saying that for $1,500 you will show someone how to be enlightened?"
only one.
He says, "Only one, only one, the one that got away." And I was just like, "Wow, that is beautiful." You know, I mean, that's amazing. You know, my first question was how much. You know, because he said it once to me privately, and I thought I had misunderstood him, and I didn't. You know, and then I heard him say it in a group setting again. And my first question was, "Well, how much?" You know, and he said $1,500. You know, he was straight up $1,500.
Yeah.
So he's telling me it costs $1,500 to become enlightened.
God,
what a deal!
Beautiful.
But there are people out there.
Oh yeah. I was at a meeting once with the same friend and two others. We drove down to La Jolla, and they had Eckhart Tolle, which I think he's a fine man. I've never resonated with the power of now, and they had Catherine Ingram, who was very beautiful, still is, and of course I fell in love with her. Who else? I don't remember who else, but it was fun. But we had more fun, the four of us, in the seminar. It was not cheap either. I think somebody along there said at the end of his talk, said, or she, I don't remember if it was Catherine Ingram or not. She's kind of gone quiet now, but someone said if anybody would like to be enlightened, if they come down to the stage right now. So
go on down.
My first, I was in the balcony. You were in the chief seats. I thought, okay. And I started to stand up, and I thought, I'm not going to do it.
What do you want to do? No.
Yeah, I really don't.
Well, I actually I was talking to a it's already a whole kind of guy, a Parsonian type of
Mm,
person,
Barbarian.
and Parsonian.
Oh,
Um, yeah, I love him too. Um, uh, because I love him because he's incredibly human, like anybody else,
mm,
and it's funny to see that dude. It's almost like it's kind of like do what I say, not what I do, kind of thing. But
yeah.
yeah, I love that even Parsons will bring about his own experience and into the conversation, even though that doesn't really actually happen, as he says. And the funniest thing was he said, "Oh God, what was it? What were we talking? Oh, me and this friend. I'll tell you this. Oh shoot, did I forget my? Well, anyways, I forgot the main point, but essentially he was saying, it's already this, it's already whole, it's already complete,
Mm,
and nobody has, and nobody ever has a satori or the moment of clarity or an enlightenment or a switch. And I said yes, but appearances do, and because there's nothing but appearances here, and every appearance I've ever met that has a switch in perspective dances around this kind of thing
mm,
as if we are now in a reality that doesn't have anything to do with the appearance of the apparent world.
no,
But see, the speaker doesn't live in a separate world. The
no.
speaker lives in the same world as everybody else. And when he gets off the stage, he talks to his family just like everybody else. He has friends. He has, everything is much like it is between friends
Yeah,
or acquaintances or associates or whatever you
yeah,
want to say. And the speaker tends to think of the seeker tends to see the speaker as somebody that lives in a different alternate universe, and that's just not the case. They will
no,
talk that way to you in that reference, but when they get off the stage, they're just like normal people. So, as appearances are concerned, we have switches. There are stories. We have enlightenment stories and all that kind of stuff, and it's been going on for as long as the appearance of space and time and these
yeah,
kind of non-dual talks have been going on. So it's not like, well, nobody's ever had a switch. Yeah, but we are appearances talking to each other.
yes,
So what
yeah,
I mean, it doesn't. What essentially what the speaker is saying, as far as I can tell, is that you know uh, they're essentially saying none of this is actual or real or true, but that doesn't matter. Appearances are real enough because we have families, we have children we care about, we have
yeah,
cars that we love, and we have
yeah,
jobs or all of that kind of stuff.
yeah,
So that's kind of where I'm at with the whole Parsonian kind of
yeah,
gimmick. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah. The thing I love most is the humanness of people. I love their great big broken heartedness, the battle scars, the tear tracks, and the blood-stained clothing. Life beats everyone up. I see soldiers, I see warriors everywhere. 2 years old will fall down and they get up again. They'll fall down and get bloodied sometimes. It doesn't dissuade them from walking. They get up again. Broken-hearted people. Everyone's had the broken heart there. And they go back into the world. And I love people that have been to war and won some and lost some. I love people's humanness. Walt Whitman said he loves the smell of his own armpits. He was so human.
Yes.
Uh, I
Well,
love,
isn't that the weirdest thing? Stuff like that. Yeah, the smell of their own armpit. Who can't relate to that? The smell of their own
I can. When I was a carpenter, and a carpenter's hard work. It's good, hard, clean work. You come home sweaty and tired and dusty and smelling of pitch and sweat and what else? Oh, I don't know. But I remember taking off my shirt and feeling human, and strong and young and I love that. I love I love women. I love the way they talk and giggle and laugh and flip their hair. And I love men, the way they walk and talk. And I love humans. I love
Yes,
being human.
yes. I absolutely agree. I love the whole. It doesn't necessarily have to have an objective reality, in a materialist sense, anchored to some objective truth that
Yeah.
we appear to be as we are, and that is enough for me. In fact, it's liberating. I love it that there is no objective truth to it, but the appearance itself lends beauty to it because it doesn't actually mean anything. We are completely free we appear to be completely free to do whatever we want to do, and it's already whole and completely predetermined almost. It seems the simultaneity of the paradoxes is just amazing to me, and I just love uh, the intricacies involved with, as you were saying in this one post that I wrote down, and this is beautiful along this line of humanness. Um, if you want to know somebody, find out what breaks their heart. I mean,
Oh,
if that is, if I've never heard a truer statement. Um, yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I think that's true. Would you care to elaborate on that?
it's the commonality, it's the common ground where we share our humanness. We can never meet, as you've elaborated so beautifully, is because we are appearances. We long to be close together. We hug each other. I saw my son today, and I adore him. He's been the most amazing influence in my life. I've never had a coarse word with him. And when I hugged him a long time, and we press this chest area, that the warmth, or the, if you ask people to talk, to point to themselves, even little children would say, "Here I am."
Yeah, yeah.
Just me.
Right at the heart, right? Yeah.
Yeah, me. Here I am. They never say, "Here I am." I'm
Right,
like,
right. Here I am. Right
"Here I
behind the
am."
eyeballs.
Right up here in the frontal cortex, right here.
Yeah.
Never. I've never seen anybody do that. Well, somebody did it once, jesting to me, just pulling my chain. Here I
Usually,
am.
when they do this, it's to get you out of your dream state and
Yeah,
to pay attention.
yeah,
Pay
yeah.
attention. They're
Here
trying to
I
get you to
am.
mentally focus on something.
It could
It has
be.
nothing
Yeah,
to do with the individual. Yeah.
yeah, could be. I live in a world of could be, or maybe,
Yeah.
or I drifting along in a sublime unknowingness. I know that nothing can be known. I know that nobody knows more than anyone else concerning these matters, because ultimately nothing can be known about imaginary things, and all things are imaginary.
Well, and I hate to go back to it, but
Right?
essentially, if you cannot know the source of your knowledge, perception, or if you cannot know the source of your knowledge, perception, or memory uh, to be actual, and if you cannot test that actuality, if you cannot know that that source is giving you a depiction of actual time and space, and in fact, if you know that you cannot process actual time, then
Mm,
how do you know that that what you are perceiving is in any way displaying anything actual? Now, that is just a logical point.
sure.
It doesn't have anything to do with enlightenment or anything. It's just a pointer to show people, look, there is no actual tether, and the belief that there is, that the story is true, is just a lack of looking at the facts. And as they are, in that there are no discernible facts about knowledge, about perception, about memory, and everything that you think you are and life is based on an assumption that what appears to be is based in uh, testable reality, and it's not. You can
Mm,
go through sensation, but sensation is subjective to the individual. We cannot share the color purple. We could say, "Hey, this looks purple," right? But I can't know what purple looks like to you. When I hit my thumb with a hammer, it might hurt, but you don't know what hurt means to me. So sensation itself, along with all kinds of examples of pain being completely subjective to the individual, is also a story, and although albeit a very painful one to many, and myself included. Where I come to another issue, um, that of method and practice. It seems that there are a lot of people that will look down on method and practice. You know, they'll say, "Oh no, don't meditate or don't do this." I personally don't meditate because I don't think I have a brain or a mind, and it's just I can just watch my brain work without me even being included with it. It's actually very peaceful and very calming, and I can be meditating at any time. Whereas because it's just not real, so it doesn't make a doesn't make any difference. Whereas um, when I see somebody that's hurting and I have a way to help them get out of pain, and
Mhm.
I explain to them how I get out of it without any medication, without any help from anybody when I am in pain. This is how I can get it to disperse. Now I tell them how I do that. People would have actually criticized me and say, "Well, you're trying to give a method or a practice." Well, what difference does it make if one appearance helps another appearance get out of pain? I mean, if it works, who cares? I mean, what difference does it make? I mean, if we're just appearances, is it absolutely necessary that I allow a child to starve in the street? I mean, does it matter that I go to help the kid? And wouldn't it be more amazing that you help an appearance simply because they're an appearance and for no other reason? I mean, it just I'm confused about this whole
Yeah.
kind of detachment from what appears, as if because it's not real, you can't care about it as an
Yeah.
appearance.
Um, a foundational thought is that confusion always is conceptual. There's no confusion in nature. You look out in the forest and the birds and the trees and the foxes and the weasels, there's no confusion there. It's always conceptual. Um, it's conflicting ideas within the person, ideas mistaken for real entities.
Well,
Um,
the animals aren't coming up with concepts.
no,
The
they don't.
appearance of animals in the wild having no conceptual, they just eat each other and eat the fruit, and then nature happens.
Yeah.
That's not. What do you mean by conceptual?
Confusion only exists in the human mind, in the human objectified perspective. Because we mistake, or because I would say our brain or mind or whatever the thinking organism is, whatever that is, confuses concepts for reality. And there's no such thing as reality, of course. And concepts are individual. They're picked up from the time we are babies. Baby will learn to talk this way more, or water. Uh, they can teach babies very early how to objectify and communicate, and all of that is layered over the years until about the age 6 or 7 or 8, where it dawns on the child that, hey, I'm a self, I'm alone. It gets the first catharsis. I remember crawling underneath the kitchen table, curl a ball, knowing that one day I was going to die. Along with that sense of self comes the realization of impending doom.
Mm.
Um, we try to make peace with the dream. And within the dream, there is no peace, but there is a profound joy in this unknowingness, in this choicelessness. It appears to have choice when they know, LeBay and others, that there's a time lapse between the time the perceptual input comes in, that the brain reacts to its programming. It's all programming, all beautifully highly evolved, multi-layered programming in this machinery, this gray matter that has hundreds of billions of connections of neurons, and they all interlacing and responding and interacting, 24 hours a day. And this dream machinery never stops, and we want it to stop. We are a product within that, so we have no power to stop it. You can meditate for I meditated for 5 years, transcendental meditation. At the time, it was $150, which we could ill afford. I think we were making $12 to $15,000 a year. And I told my wife, I said, I really want to try this. I'd been a seeker long before we met. And she said, okay. So I paid $150, which is probably equivalent to $1,500 now, maybe more. And I went through the whole thing. I tried it for 5 years. One time, for a split second, I went, whoop, bang, right out of there.
Yeah.
I was so terrified.
Yeah, that's horrifying.
Jesus Christ. But I tried for the next 5 years to get it back. I wanted more.
Well, did you ever?
No.
Did you ever get it back?
No.
Well,
the mind
this is it.
protects itself. It learned how to close that door.
Well, see, that's the thing. The brain, okay, as this multi-billion faceted situation,
Yeah.
could never process real time, because
Well, there's no
that
time.
would mean
There's no
sorry.
time. There's no such thing as time. What time is it on the sun?
Okay, so beautiful. So how about this? Is this actually a lifetime, or is this what appears to be your lifetime happening simultaneously in a linear chain of events? Like, for example, let's say all the information of your lifetime was on a computer disk. Okay, and from the very moment that you become self-aware to the moment that you are supposedly going to be deceased, all of that is on that disk. You can move forward, you can move backwards, you can go anywhere you want within that time, and that would be very easily what could be considered your personal life, your experience. Now, I'm not saying that that's what it is, but as far as no time is concerned, your entire life is basically non-dimensional. It's not a space, it's not a time, and it's happening concurrently or simultaneously. And so people think that they're living a linear chain of events. In reality, everything is simultaneous, and we just kind of, no matter what time you're in this chain of events, it looks like you're just going through one moment after another. When in fact, you could be going backwards, you can be going forward, you could be experiencing all of it at the same time. You can be going from the front to the back. It doesn't matter. If time doesn't exist, then what would you say life is?
When you say time doesn't exist, that implies there is such a thing as time, but it doesn't exist. That's the confusion. That's, I think, the core. When you said you become self-aware, you don't become self-aware.
Right.
The brain, I'll refer to that as a speculation, granted. The brain creates this conceptual overlay, and with a complex languaging, a shared languaging. We exist only in each other's presence. One man is no man. So the shared languaging and this sense of isolation, imaginary isolation, conceptualized isolation, becomes the great bugaboo for seekers. They're trying to seek a way out of an imaginary prison. It doesn't exist. Granted, those are all stories. When you said time, there's such a thing as time, but it's fluid. That's the story about time. That's the idea. Time doesn't exist, but we don't know what it is. Or time.
If there was an objectively real universe and a brain did exist within it, it could not process. It would have to exist within the rules of that reality,
Of course.
which would be that you cannot process information instantaneously. And so, no matter what you saw, if a brain was processing a reality, it could not do it in actual time. It would have to do it slightly before and slightly after in a kind of a collage that would make it seem like real time in a smooth fashion. If it was actually coming through, like one of your posts says, if the brain was actually seeing things in real time, it would just explode. Or if you as a self saw things in actual time, you would just explode or lose it, because actually it would be splotchy in some places, it would be stopped in others, it'd be running fast in others, it would be blank in others, it would be too bright in others, it would be stuff, just chaos from everywhere. And so what even if you believe that you have this processor of a brain that is receiving sensation from a nervous system, it is doing this, it is processing this reality as the self sees it, either slightly before or slightly after actual time. And what you are saying is that time doesn't exist at all, and that the brain or the mind is actually kind of just making this story up.
Mhm.
So what I am saying is, what is the what is the necessity of the processor? If what I'm saying is that, is it the story of a necessity of a source, simply that, a story? It's not.
Mhm.
We have no, like you were saying about the Big Bang, and what you were saying about, or what I've heard you say about the Big Bang, and that, we're talking about when time and space began and things of
Oh,
that nature.
oh, no, that's
all
not
of
the Big Bang.
all of that is a story about a source that does not doesn't have any objective reality to it. There is no cause.
Yeah, I never talk about the Big Bang in that sense. My very few references to that have meant the Big Bang to reference the world exploding inside of this objectifying brain and saying, I am the self, I am autonomous, I am this emerges in the Big Bang. Um, to me, that's the Big Bang, but never in reference to a physical reality. The Big Bang in the physical universe, I don't know anything about. I know that no one else does either. It's all speculation. Everything is speculation.
Yeah. It seems to me that the easiest way to get a seeker to stop thinking dimensionally is to, first of all, take away the notion that there needs to be a source or a cause at all.
Mm.
And, I mean, it just seems so obvious, that even the reality, the apparent reality that we share, shows us that everybody's talking or trying to find this source. However, there is no example of a need of that. So if you look at the every moment as sourceless, then things start taking on an entirely different meaning. I'm sorry, I've totally stepped all over what you were saying, and I apologize for
No, no, we that's the nature of conversation, I think. The idea that we do anything,
that. Yes.
that there is a separate self that is the doer, when eventually I think the brain sees that its own sense of self is its own mental fabrication, as are all other things, including things in the physical world. We draw lines around mountains. I grew up in the Tetons in Jackson, Wyoming, and every
Oh, lucky you.
I was lucky. It was beautiful,
Oh my gosh.
horrible life. Um, two dysfunctional alcoholic parents.
Well, maybe that's not so fun.
Not so but every Teton had a name, and I knew it. I knew their names. Um, but there's no Grand Teton. There's no Mount Owens. Those are names given to things that, I mean, no one knows what a mountain is. One time I said, I've put a lot of thought into this, and I think that hills become mountains when they get over 1,800 feet tall. No one's ever made that distinction before, but I'm going to make it. I'm going to
I
decide
got you.
1,800 feet is a mountain. And so somebody said, well, how can you decide? I said, well, somebody has to, because
Well,
we have to know the difference between hills and mountains.
I
And
think the difference between a mountain, I mean, or I think a mountain is just a very slow wave.
or slow moving. Yeah. Oh, I wrote
Very
something
slow
about
wave on
the third
land.
slow moving earth wave.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Slow moving earth wave. Dust storm, a very slow moving dust storm.
Mhm.
The Great Plains came out of the Rocky Mountains that were much higher many years ago, and the sediment washed out into this great flatness of Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, the Great Plains. It wasn't like that always. But again, like you said, it's a slow moving earth wave. But there's no mountains, there's no oceans, Pacific and Atlantic and Indian and Arctic and what the hell? There's no line that goes all the way down to the bottom. except
And
in a
s-
go ahead.
yeah, and similarly, there's no you or me.
No, and that's the hard part. When people get to the edge, there was a lady in Rainbow's meeting today, it was quite delightful. She was a psychiatric nurse, and people think they're going crazy when they get to the edge and they look over and they see nothing. The void stares back. You stare into the void and the void stares back. One time I wrote, the void is actually a mirror.
Yeah.
It shows your own emptiness, and that scares the hell out of you.
Yeah. Well, for me, that that just kind of happened, as a consequence.
Yeah.
As far as like the reflection, you lose yourself as a tether to reality, but yet your reflection is everywhere. It's the most bizarre thing of all
Yeah.
time. It's like you no longer exist. However, everything is. You're kind of the eyes of this apparent world,
It
and
takes years to get used to that. It takes
yeah,
years. Park bench time. Tony talks about it. Eckhart Tolle says he
right,
spent years on the park bench. It's unsettling, and you can't talk about it to anybody.
yeah,
It's the reason Nancy started Rainbows was for those people who thought they were going crazy, who had experienced the edge and pulled back. Um, it's a tipsy topsy world out there, and in the world of nothing at all, between everything and nothing at all. It's very difficult. You think you're going crazy, especially a psychiatric nurse who's dealing with. She said she wished she was a patient, so people would take care of her.
well,
because
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
because she's dealing with medical doctors that are so firmly locked into
Oh,
their reality, and
the system.
psychiatrists. Yeah.
Well, that's my thing. The system. There's so much put on the necessity of a system or a mechanism that makes things happen, and the that's where obviously there's a breakdown because there is no cause or effect, and as far as this is concerned, there is no source or path or destination, and none of that is actual. So there is no time that starts from one point and then goes to another. None of that is actual. And you know my humble opinion is that this is not dimensional at all. This is um, it's not a place or a time, and there's nothing outside of what appears to be immediate experience. And so it is freedom and already whole simultaneously without mechanism, sourceless and spontaneous and
Mhm.
completely just it's
That's
anarchy and already predetermined. So it's one of those it's one of those indeterminable things that you can't say. But one thing I do love about sourcelessness in that if you can get somebody uh, to ponder that all perception and all sensation, all thought and memory are based on a story that has no verification. And don't even believe it. Just play with that. Play with that idea. Play with that notion
okay.
that
That's
nothing is causing what appears to be happening right
okay. Yeah,
now.
that
Nothing.
kind of in a way that kind of contradicts what you were saying before about having a method or a
Right.
methodology.
Well, see, that's the thing. Within what appears to be this here and now are these appearances, and we as appearances seem to be interactive. And see, like a chair chairs, a Howard Howard's. And so my thing about a method or a practice is that if there's somebody in pain around me, and I know a
Mhm.
method to get that appearance out of a pain, and they're susceptible to it if they're uh, accepting of the offer, I will explain to them how they can get out of this illusion of pain and how it is love expressing itself as this agony. And usually, what happens is a lot of times people are running from something, even enlightened, quote unquote, the enlightened folks that are running into bad times, have health problems, and they'll say, "I know it's love, but I think I've lost it because I can't. This isn't love. I mean, this is wrong. Something's wrong, and I'm in a lot of pain." And I'll explain to them that they that they can't run from it. and you have to become the pain. And in becoming the pain and the intricacies involved with that, and going through that process, going straight into it, essentially pain dissipates because, and I know that this is flowery and drunk and loose language, and none of this is actual, but it appears to dissipate the pain because you don't want to change it, you don't want to try to understand it. It just is. It's not you having a sensation, it is simply the sensation appearing to happen. And so instead of running from it, get into every little nook and cranny of it and become the pain. And oftentimes it'll dissipate, and that is what I mean by a mechanism or a system. Now,
Mhm.
is that it doesn't mean that it's actual, it's not based in a reality, but it is a way for appearances to get out of pain, even when medication
I
tends to
think for me, and we're talking about different worlds here, Howard's world and Michael's world.
right.
For me, I don't see seekers. I know they're in pain because I was there for 50 years. But I feel comfortable with their pain. I did hospice work a long time, 10 years, and sitting with simply with what is. You're not trying, it's called palliative care. You're not trying to help relieve the pain. You're not trying to make the person feel better. You're not coaxing them a life coach to coax them into death. You're just simply sitting there with what is. That's very calming. And I feel
Well,
that way. I'm sorry.
no, please go ahead.
I feel that way with what we think of as seekers. I'm willing to sit with their pain. I use sometimes the analogy of I used to raise ducks, wild ducks that I used to carve wood ducks competitively, and so I wanted to get a collection of wild ducks. So I would buy duck eggs and hatch them in an incubator. And you see this baby struggling, this little beak. They have a little horn on their
Are
beak.
you going to tell me that you strangled little ducklets for
No,
fun?
no, no, God, no. I loved them so much.
You didn't kill the ducklets for fun, did you?
Never. Um, but they struggle so hard. I mean, it's hard to get an egg broken from the inside, hard from the outside. But the stronger babies they struggle and struggle, make a little crack, and they take a deep breath, their first breath of air, and then they rest, and then the struggle starts. A little chip here, a little chip there, little chip away, and then they rest. And the tendency is to want to help them. Take a chip away. There's a loose chip, I can help them. But never does that work. It
What do you mean?
always causes harm. You never
Why?
help a baby chicken out of the egg, ever.
Why?
It never helps them. I think,
Why?
again, we live in different worlds. So this is
Well, I
my
mean, how do you know that doesn't help?
because trial and error.
Well, like for example, I heard you say this in regards to you were working in a women's battered shelter or something, women that were been battered and stuff,
Yeah.
and you made similar comments that kind of like I was like, wow, that's kind of cruel, but the like the women would be crying and they would be trying to to manipulate you in somehow in some fashion, and you wouldn't allow it to happen, and you would just sit there and let them cry,
Mm.
and all this stuff. That it seems, and now you're saying these things about letting little chickens die, and I'm just wondering, and competing and comparing that with seekers that can't find peace, and I'm
Mm.
wondering, Michael, what is that about, sir? What is that? What are you trying to say? What is that message? I
It's
mean,
a
what is that?
sublime comfortableness with whatever is without trying to change it to make myself feel better.
Make
Hospice,
yourself feel better.
yeah, we don't like pain, and it really isn't the other person's pain we're trying to alleviate, it's our own.
So let me get this straight. So what you're saying is to allow suffering to happen in order to
No, no, no,
bolster up your own sense of
no, no, no.
sereneness.
In the deeper levels of our motivational reactions, what do we really want to do? We say we want to relieve their pain, but we're uncomfortable with their pain.
But
It's really,
what I'm saying is, if you relieve someone's pain, what are you going to say later? Oh, I regret helping that lady back then.
oh,
I regret helping that chicken. I mean, how can you lose by helping another
um,
appearance? I mean,
I
what
learned to never help the chicken. I just said,
never help somebody. Never help the seeker. Never help the
no,
battered
I
woman. Never help the chicken in
no,
hospice. I mean, there's a there's a there's
no,
a reoccurring theme here.
I know. We never really help anybody. We do in the physical world. We can set a bone, we can soothe and put salve on a wound. But when it comes to the area of the imaginary, our own egotistical point of view is what relates to the suffering. I just love seekers the way they are. I love their seeking. I love being with them. I talk about my experience, what my life was like before and after. And I suppose this is AA training. I don't know what was my life was before and what it's like now. I don't see them as, I see them as premature, maybe premature eggs that are waiting to break out of the shell, this imaginary shell themselves. My only reference to this chicken and duck egg thing is that everybody who raises eggs to chickens have learned over time that you cause more harm by helping them. You're uncomfortable with the chick struggle, but evolution, a million years of evolution, the strongest, most healthy babies will make it through. I never really
Yeah,
had
but
it.
that's the illusion of time, though, right? I mean, evolution isn't actual. It's not like these stories are real. It's just there's there's a little chick that wants to try to live for a little while. That's in your immediate experience, and you're saying let it die.
No, no, no. I never had one die, but I did.
And by the way, I eat chicken, so I mean, it's not like
Too.
I'm some
I do
kind of
too.
moral authority. I'm just saying, you know,
Um,
it, it's just a
but
bizarre thing to hear. And I understand what you mean, but if there's somebody in hospice that's dying, okay, you're saying let them be comfortable with their pain, even if you can help them.
oh no, physical pain. There's I would administer morphine. You can a few drops underneath this bottom lip, and the pain goes away. Um, Actually, over the 10 years, I never had a client in pain. Most of us fear death because of the imagined pain involved, and I never had a client in pain. So you're very well equipped to relieve pain, and the doctors are too. You know, we just put the hospice volunteers just put a few drops under. That's all we can do. You say, "Are you
Right.
in pain?" And they say,
I don't
"Yes."
even think they can do that anymore, actually. But yeah,
Yeah, you can.
that's it.
Yeah, there's a big bottle of morphine in the refrigerator.
Oh, okay.
Um, so you're not, you're just with what is. You're just, you know, they're dying. They have fourth stage cancer. They're given 6 months by the doctor. And between you and me, every time you get 6 months, everybody gets 6 months from the doctor, no
Okay.
matter how
So,
serious it is.
so
Uh,
to equate that to a seeker, okay, now somebody is essentially, um, they're just frustrated. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say, and you're essentially,
yeah.
you had mentioned that it's the same thing. You're happy just allowing them to suffer rather than trying
No,
to
no,
help them.
no. I never had a client that was suffering. I saw relatives that were suffering. I saw spouses, daughters, sons, husbands, lovers who were suffering because of losing the prospect of losing this light in their life. But I never had a client suffering. Death has a way of approaching gently. It's always the client's worried about relatives because the relatives are worried. But the client, when you sit with them alone, there's laughter, there's joy. They say in a children's cancer ward, what goes on there when there's no parents around is children laughing, playing games, the ones that aren't too sick. But as soon as one parent comes in, every child stops.
Yeah.
They know
Yeah.
that the parent is in pain. They don't want to be clowning around, but children have that sensitivity, that beautiful. You have it. You want to, like I mentioned, people love you, they adore you. Everyone I've
Well,
met.
likewise, it's just we have these, this thing. I see what you're saying, and I think there's a certain aspect of me that agrees that it's not like you know, uh, you don't have to do anything, and it's not like you're choosing to do anything anyway.
Mm.
But the it's just it's odd to me because it's so different from any other thing I've ever heard that
Mm.
that you would allow that you're. I think your words were you're okay with letting them suffer. And
No.
insofar as like a woman's, a battered shelter
Oh,
or people in hospice or the chickens. I mean, it was something like that. And that's kind of what exactly do you, because that's, what does
oh,
that mean? I'm not sure. What,
I did bereavement groups for widows and widowers, where you
why do
facilitate.
you do these things if you don't mind that people suffer?
Oh
That's,
no, no, I suffer when other people do. We are each other. We feel each other's pain.
yeah.
Um, but say if you're in a bereavement group and you're a facilitator, and a group of 15 women who have lost their husbands come in.
Mhm.
So they're very nervous at first, and so you put them gently at ease, and pretty soon they start knowing each other, and they realize they all have the same pain, the same sense of loss. So they start to weave themselves into each other's world. And sometimes after 5 sessions, say, someone, it will dawn on them that their husband or wife is not coming back. They're gone. They won't see themselves reflected in that person's light ever again. And this great sob comes. It's a moaning sob that we've all heard, this great sobbing, tears, snot. It just, oh, aching sob. And people, I've never had anyone rush out and give them a handkerchief. There's handkerchiefs on the table, several boxes. No one ever, they have this impeccable sense to let the sobbing continue until it's over. It's a life of pain coming out. If you have never experienced it, it's it's the most cleansing. I've been through it twice in my life. This great gulping air sob, the chest aching. But no one puts their hand on their back and tries to soothe them. They just sit and everyone waits.
So that would be a method or a practice unto itself. To what end? Why does that work?
Because the sobbing, it's time. It's time for the sobbing. And you may have 1 or 5 women who go through that, but what the other women observe is cleansing also. I have seen women come in. One lady for the first 3 sessions sat in the corner facing away from everybody, trembling like a little girl. No one ever said, I won't say her name, we're not supposed to say names, but I'll say Joyce. No one ever said, Joyce, come sit at the table. They let her be. It would have been uncomfortable for her to sit at the table. It was natural to have her sitting in the corner. It's where she wanted to sit. No one helped her. No one should have helped her.
And this does what for the person?
It lets people have the freedom to accept their own healing in their own time. She came and sat at the table, and she was eventually sobbed. Long red hair coming down over the table, um, broke down, sobbing. About 6 months later, and she had lost her husband incredibly close. I knew them, and lovely couple, lovely man. And she just couldn't get over it.
Mm.
But I saw her 6 months later walking down the highway, long red hair flowing. She was moving the way women do and flipping her hair, enjoying the sun. It was beautiful. For me to stop her sobbing because I was uncomfortable with it, because I wasn't, but other people may have been uncomfortable with it, would have been inappropriate.
So
Letting,
it's like a tough love kind of thing.
well, not that even. It's just loving people enough to let them find their own pace. In horses, you let a horse find the pace they're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Humans, I think it's the grace of letting people be themselves. To enter healing too soon is helping the egg. If you feel sorry for that little chick, he's just working so hard. Howard, I think you're lovely. There's nothing I would change about you. There's nothing I could. When I ask people, what would I change about you? Invariably, they say, what?
Well, right back at you, my friend. And I hope that let me see, what is it? Oh, okay. Let me see. Can I ask you one more question, sir?
Oh, of course. I'm really loving this, by the way.
I am too. I think this is amazing, and it's beautiful. I mean, I like what you're saying. Um, yeah, I mean, I can see. I mean, if those, I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, you can't help everybody, even if you did want to. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Excuse me.
Okay. It
Okay.
does not exempt one from the need of love simply because the nature of love is known. Question: what is the nature of love? That was your post. Let me see if I said this right. It does not exempt one from the need of love simply because the nature of love is known.
Mm.
What is, and my question would be, what is the nature of love? Would you say?
Oh, God. So, again, love is not a thing in itself. So, starting with that idea, love is this familial feeling of safeness with another. Love is knowing someone well enough to know that you won't be harmed by them emotionally or physically. Love is the warmth we feel when it dawns that we are each other, that we exist and emerge only in each other's light, that this commonality, this familial, it's not oneness, that is just in their concept, but is these holographic figures dancing in the center of I am, this sense of personal identity exists only in the presence of others. One man on an island goes crazy. Where Tom Hanks was on the island, he made a basketball like a human. He needed a cross reference. We need each other to find out, to place ourselves in the world as imaginary individuals, albeit in an imaginary world. We don't exist without that. Being imaginary, we have to have another imaginary persona in there to reflect our light back at us. We are the light of the world. We are the light of our own unique, objectified world. Everything is unique to us, like we said, beautifully, wonderfully unique. A world of self referential memories swirling around an empty center of I am.
I love that. Yeah, the empty center of I am. It's kind of like, for me, um, the loss of a tether to a center.
Yeah.
Uh, there's that vulnerable, almost that loss of foundation in the butterflies, and the chest feels like it's about to explode, and it's almost like love in that you are completely at the mercy of you know Thinglessness, and you are being dissipated um, as a story. It's just completely, and it's horrifying and exhilarating, and
Yeah,
you get that snap back where you snap back into,
yeah.
you snap back into things and yourself, and then you're mad at yourself for not allowing the centerless, centerlessness take you.
Yeah.
It's I love that. I love that. That those moments where
Mm.
um, truly, it's one thing to say, well, I have no foundation and I have no tether to a reality. And it's an entirely different thing to experience thinglessness. And it's like the difference between throwing a bullet and shooting it. It's you literally are, like as fast as a bullet, speeding away from the story of an identity
Yeah.
or the story of what appeared to be reality in the first place,
Mm.
completely gone, and it's just it's unexplainable. But here's another beautiful one I loved that I read from yours was first first there were mountains, then there were no mountains, then there were mountains, then the whole thing became silly. I love that. That's so perfect. That's
I
amazing.
love
I mean, that's got to be probably one of my favorites.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could relate.
Yeah. Arguing over the existence of things that don't exist.
Yeah, and well, it, the funny thing is that we as appearances think that we have these evolving these evolving ideas, but essentially it's much like that. First there's mountains, then there's no mountains, then there's mountains, and it's like you realize no matter what I'm thinking is actually true, it doesn't really make any difference because there's objective truth tied to that illusion. It's just
Yeah.
a, oh, here's a good one. Here's a good one. Homesickness is the lingering hope that we have one. I
Yeah,
love that.
I do
Yeah,
too. Yes,
yeah,
we're
that's
all homesickness, biblical reference, and I am not a believer at all of anything, but the idea that there's no place for man to rest his weary head. We're all homesick. We want this feeling of being together is as close as we can ever get to, or dancing in each other's light is as close as we're ever going to get to home. Uh,
well, wouldn't that be? See, this is what I like to say in that line of thinking is that because I am homeless, I am always home. So no matter where I am, I rest my head and I'm in bed. And so, I mean, in a sense, you know, the homeless man is always home, and no matter what you're going through, that is home sweet home. And the entire illusion that you need to get back to someplace is the illusion that you're not already home. No matter where you are, you're home.
That's another story, though, Howard. That you know that that's just another story. That your home is
Oh yeah,
everywhere. To me, I like the idea of the center breaks free and becomes everywhere.
that's a
That
good
to
one. Yeah.
me brings closer to this thing that doesn't exist. The center is broken free and becomes everywhere. And again, those are just words, a string of words that can may or may not resonate with someone. But sometimes when I used to go down and talk to a philosophy class and talking to 18-year-olds about this stuff, most of which, aren't by nature interested in this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But over the years, I caught maybe three. One young man, I looked out of this way we talk, and after a while, they'd start asking questions like the normal questions that you hear over and over. And so one young man halfway through started to cry. So I looked at him and I thought, oh, there's one. There's one who's thought he was going crazy because he thinks he's in a crazy world and he thinks everyone that he thinks that he's crazy and everybody else is normal. But that's and then a doctor that came to this philosophy class every year. I caught him. I could see the smile on his face, the glitter in his eye, the light.
Right.
and warmth. There was somebody else, but I don't remember. One thing I would do to catch their attention, 18-year-old, 17, 18, 19. And so I'd say, we're talking about things and the non-existence of things, or the essential emptiness of all things that never actually existed, is that I would offer $1,000 if they could think of anything that didn't have a name. And the $1,000 got them. I could use that. So they're thinking, they're bright kids. They're in fairly exclusive college. So they're thinking of something without a name. So one young man, after some time, young man raised his hand and he said, nothing. I said, oh, no, we call that nothing. That's its name. Somebody said, oh, you know that feeling you get when you're, and they'll go through a long description. I said, well, that's its name. That's the feeling you get when you're, that's its name. They couldn't think of any, in the years, not one person ever thought of anything that didn't have a name. I think that should tell us all we need to know.
Yeah, it's so that's alluding to what, the naming of things, giving them their reality.
The overlay, the world, the named place that we are. It's we, self, ego is all the named place. The sense of self emerges within the objectifying brain's consensus conceptual overlay. And somehow some brains struggle against that. They want to make sense of it using the overlay. And it's not happening. It's like trying to find that restroom in your dream at night. Or if somebody in your dream at night said, sir, could you tell me how to get out of this dream? You'd say, well, I don't know.
It's like telling somebody not to use their mind.
No, it's not that either.
Yeah, because well, if you actually, well,
it's not their mind.
Yeah, well, it's. I personally don't think I have one, so I don't. I mean, there's a mind, but it's detached from whatever it is that used to be. The character of Howard has a mind and a brain and all of that kind of thing, but I don't think it is actual or it is real. It is this, and what actually is appearing is sourceless to me. So sourceless in that there is nothing making it happen. There's nothing. There's not a system or a mechanism or a cause or an effect that makes what appears to be what it is. Now, the funny thing is that what appears are these systems and mechanisms everywhere, but none of them have a cause in an objective sense, in a primary cause kind of way. And there was along that line, and I know that you've already kind of touched on this, and I have a couple of more things. I don't want to keep you too long.
I don't care.
There's Pete. Let me see if I can see. Well, he wants to know if what you think of God. What do you think of a primary mover, a God, a deity? What do you think about anything like that? Spiritualism, all that stuff.
Well, I don't think anything exists, and that, of course, would have to include a God. That is separation. God is one of the last handholds that falls away. It's the main anchor point. The function of God is to make the self appear relevant, and it does a pretty good job. I'm important to God. God thinks about me. It's all self-referential data points, anchors into the imaginary floating dream world. All beliefs are just beliefs about imaginary things. That, of course, would have to include God, and that idea that God is separate than you. So, well, God's inside of me, or I am a part of God. Well, that's just another story. That's
right.
It's all
just so I'm clear, because self-referential data points, are we under agreement that is the illusion of an individual and their thought processes? They're not actual data points. It's just the illusion of an individual thinking.
correct.
Are we on this?
Yeah, it's not the individual thinking at all. The individual emerges within the thinking process.
Right. So when you're talking about self-referential data points, you're actually referring to the appearance of an individual and not the actuality of one.
referring to the brain's anchor into the reality. You have a birthday when you're 2 and 3 and 4. That's one of your data points. It circles around every year, and you have a birthday. That's a data point.
Now, is
God,
that actual, or is that something tethered in a reality, or is that actual, or is that in the apparent memory? I mean, how would you?
nothing can be actual according to the conventional meaning of actual. There's no such thing as actual either, but nothing can be actual in reference to a dream. And this
So
is
it's so self-referential data points. You're referring to the foundationless uh, appearance of an individual
hmm,
in a dream
the
with a dream.
foundation. Yeah, the anchor points that
Of the
gradually.
anchorless. The anchor points of the anchorless.
Well,
That's pretty good, actually.
that's another story. Another story. Yeah, I'm suggesting that this perceptual input can be anchorless, can flow along with whatever appears to be happening. It's free at last, uh, free beyond choice, free beyond guilt. If there's no choice, there's no guilt, there's no forgiveness, because forgiveness implies someone had a choice. Um,
Well,
once
it would be much like the pain, wouldn't it? In that there's no real pain. It would be much like the pain, in that
uh,
there's no actual pain.
there's physical pain. Without pain, our
There
body.
appears to be. Yeah, like there appears to be freedom of choice.
No, I know there's pain. I not too long ago, I wound up on the floor, curled up, making moany sounds from something called trigeminal neuralgia, which is another word for it is suicide headache. Uh,
Ouch.
yeah, people commit suicide because of the
I've
pain.
heard about that. Yes.
Yeah,
I,
and there's pain. There is physical pain. You know what physical pain is, Howard. You've been through it
yeah,
as
yeah.
much as anybody.
I'm, yeah, I'm acquainted.
You are acquainted. I think
I'm acquainted. We've met.
yeah, that's one of the reasons I love you is because I know you've been through pain. I know everybody has. It's painful to be human beings. It's emotionally and physically. It's the most difficult job in the world. It's also the most rewarding. We're the only place where love and beauty exist. Sometimes they'll say your dog doesn't love you. Oh, you never owned a dog. Your dog doesn't love you. The dog doesn't even know they exist. They lick your face because they want you to regurgitate food. They lay over and want their belly scratched because that's exposing their inferiority. They're exposing their vulnerable parts. All of those things are subservience, and they're pleasant. I love my dog,
well,
my son's Frenchie. I think he's just charming. He likes me because I give him treats and I scratch his back and he recognizes me and he wiggles and I say, "Oh, Frankie, you're so precious." And I love him, but he doesn't love me.
well, isn't love like we were talking about? Love is a force that is used by that uses different ways to express itself. Love is essentially unconditional love. A lot of people would say is what appears,
Yeah.
and in that way, unconditional in that you had to deal with it one way or another. Because once you're in love, once you're here, you don't have a choice. You end up on the floor with suicidal headaches. You end up with but along that line though, I would it's not that an individual loves me or that I love something else. It's that love appears, and in that way, for example, my first dog saved my life, and
Mm,
I saved his life, and then he saved my life in
yeah,
Indonesia.
yeah,
uh
that happens.
it was a
Yeah.
beautiful dog, little itty bitty, looked like Benji, but
Uh,
half of it had been eaten alive, and we nursed it back to health, and these locals turned their Dobies and German Shepherds on me,
oh,
yeah, they let them off the leashes, and Benji jumped into the pile, and they went on him, and they killed him. But my
oh,
parents were able to get me back inside, so he saved my life.
oh.
Now, what? Now, I don't know if that's love,
Mm.
but it surely does.
We had a
I mean, I'm just saying, insofar as it's not that people love each other. It's that love exists as a force and uses just different ways to show it in different ways.
okay. Dogs will, but dogs are pack animals. You're the alpha male, even when you were young. I assume this happened when you were young.
Yeah.
You were the
I was
alpha
a kid.
male. The whole pack is programmed by nature to defend the alpha male or other members of the pack. It's all programming. We're all programming.
That's
When I
kind
was
of
a
like a
kid,
cyborg, man.
cyborg,
You're
beautiful
like a
cyborg,
cyborg. It's so cool.
cyborgian. Um,
Yeah.
but there is such a sublime beauty in knowing that. Yeah. Well, again, I said again another story. But we had a very similar experience when we were kids. My brother and I we had some friends who had a huge sheep ranch, and they would feed all their dead sheep to their pigs. And the pigs, they didn't detooth them. Baby pigs are born with teeth and they eventually grow up like tuskers. But these pigs had long tusks because they had to cut apart these dead sheep. A horrible scene, not for little kids. But one day, one of those sheep eating pigs got loose and he sees two little boys running and he took out after us.
Yikes.
And of course, pigs can run as fast as
Oh man, yeah, pigs are nothing to sneeze at, man.
and he was closing in on us. And they had a sheep herding dog named Sonny who came in and he was, there's headers and healers. He would go for the nose. He was a header. And he would grab that pig by the nose and he herded him back into the sheep pen. He saved our life. Now, he didn't know us. He didn't love us.
Right.
He was reacting according to his training, his programming, not only evolutionarily. And I think,
Apparent evolution. Yeah.
yeah, okay, we'll go back to that. But the training of sheep herders, he didn't like pigs, and he very likely was taking on that pig, not to save us, but to go after the pig. I don't know. But I do know that love is a uniquely human experience. Only love, only separation, imaginary separation exists. With love is not unconditional. It always exists in conditions. Love is part of the dream. Love is the best part of the dream, but only humans experience it because of this imaginary separation that emerges in the languaging. Me
Well,
and other.
now, would you say now, there's something there's a distinction to be made there. Like you're saying, um,
Mm,
that separation is an illusion of the human mind,
yes.
and therefore love is conditional.
Yes. Everything is
And
conditional. It arises in the presence of other conditions.
okay, so so does a human actually love?
No,
Okay, so love doesn't really exist.
no, no,
Okay,
it's only as an idea. It's an
okay,
emotional chemical reaction in the brain. Certain biologics, certain reactions in this endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, two others. It's a combination of those that the person feels safe, comfortable, secure, uh, protected, uh, loved, warmth, this mother's gaze. I'm gazing at you right now with a mother's gaze. I think you're, I just, this sublime innocence, this just excruciatingly beautiful human being. Through you, I get a glimpse of what it's like to be human, what it's like to be a man. What it,
well, thank you. And the thing is that um, I'm inclined to agree to a certain
mm,
to a certain degree in that from the perspective that I understand, you are just you're saying you're expressing is that um, you believe there are things.
no, no, I believe that things exist only in the naming of them.
Okay, so um, and love is not a thing,
Love
or
is
is
a
love a
thing.
thing? Love
Everything,
is a thing
if
that
it
doesn't
has a
exist.
name, if it has a
Okay,
name, it's a thing.
and it's transactional.
Everything is in relation
Everything
to
is
everything.
transactional.
Not
Okay, now
transactional, but in everything exists in relation to everything else.
now
And
is that
that's
within the
it's all one.
illusion? Is that in the illusion of the name of the illusionary, the illusion of individuals naming things
Yeah.
create the world of transaction?
No. It appears like transactions or relational interaction, but there's no separate things to be in relationship to each other.
Right. So
It's not-
so so thinglessness itself cannot be referred to as unconditional love.
There's no such thing as seamlessness. If it has a name, it's imaginary.
Right. But like from what a lack of separation. Thinglessness is what I'm saying. Thinglessness, like a lack of things.
And
So T
thing,
I T I THING
gotcha.
LESSNESS in a thinglessness, in the lack of objects, okay, is unconditional love a way of expressing what appears. If everything is nothing, then the appearance of transactionalism is actually thinglessness showing itself as unconditional love.
Okay, you could say that, but it wouldn't mean anything because
Right.
you're stacking what I call stacking shadows to reach the moon. You're trying to
Well,
rearrange words that can make sense out of words.
no,
And
no, no, no. Because if there's not a thing, okay, then I'm not a person. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying within when you lose your tether to the identity that you are an object that is observing other things, and you enter that thinglessness, or
mm,
you get left behind, and thinglessness simply appears. Now that could seem like unconditional love because it is what it is, regardless
I
of
suppose you
what
could
you want to
say
say about
that the self and thing, the belief in things are the same phenomena.
it. Okay, so
They're,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
um, the world of things, the objectified perspective, and the sense of self are not separate from each other. They're one dynamic phenomenon. The sense of self only emerges in the world of imaginary things. It's
Uh-huh.
the imaginary center of this world of imaginary and
Everything
separate.
is nothing,
I'm sorry.
right? Everything is nothing.
Well, you can't say that either because there's no such thing as everything or nothing. Those are just ideas, the concepts, essentially meaningless. Outside
Okay,
of
so
the, I'm sorry,
go ahead, please.
outside of that world of named objects, there's no us. There's,
Right.
we can't speak of it. We can't even objectify it. We are the objectified overlay. So here we are struggling, trying to get out of an imaginary condition using imaginary tools. UG Krishnamurti talks about this a lot. Says it with some deal of harshness that I haven't been able to manifest quite yet, but uh, trying to find a key for an imaginary prison.
So like when you say "I love you," what are you what are
Mm.
you saying? What are you really saying?
I love the light from you that gives me glimpses of my own perfection, my
Yeah, but
own
love doesn't exist.
no.
So what does that mean?
I love the warmth of your companionship, your gentleness, your humanness, your kindness, your desire to help others. I
But
love
what do you mean by love?
comfortableness in your presence. I don't feel
Okay.
threatened by you have a you have a very manly voice. You have that would have intimidated me in the past because I grew up with brutal men. I grew up with hunters, bar fighters, rodeo riders, drunkards.
Yeah.
I was a frightened child.
I don't blame you. That's a tough neighborhood. The
It is.
Tetons. I mean, that's where cowboys
It was.
grow up to get hurt.
If you fall
That's a
off a
rough
horse,
neighborhood.
yeah, you can't cry when you fall off a horse. You're a little girl. Um,
Cowboy up. Yeah.
you get back on, cowboy up. Yeah, couldn't hold a saddle horn. If you ever held a saddle horn, it was it was hell to pay. Only dudes hold on to a saddle horn. Things like that. You don't flinch when a deer's throat is cut,
Yeah.
so they have to bleed them out. It's a tough scramble world. I think you have to be tough when you're in the world my dad grew up in, but not in the world I grew up in. Those toughness most is always fear. You have to when you walk into a bar, you walk a certain way. Nurses and teachers who come as dudes like that, but it's really bravado. It's fear. It's not safe there. It's prison.
Yeah.
But this is safe. I love being in your presence. I love your gentleness. I love what other people do about you. I feel love for you. But it's really my own safety, I think, that arouses that emotional chemical reaction in my brain. I relax in your company. If I were a cat, I would probably arch my back in your presence. It feels like that. It feels, like I said, this is as close to home as I'll ever get. And that stirs up these chemicals that I think of as love.
I like that. I like that. Um, Detachment happens all by itself after everything we thought we had was taken away. Yeah.
That's one of those circuitous paragraphs that circles back on itself, circles up over the orb and brings you back down. I particularly like that one. Everything you thought you had is taken away. You never really had anything. You
Yeah.
never own anything. You think you won, you're happy when you won $1,000 at the casino until it dawns on you that you own the casino.
Yeah. It's funny. When I was growing up, yeah, it was difficult to relate to people. And so I spent a lot of time by myself at the ocean, surfing and whatnot. As a kid, I would be there from dawn to dusk,
Um,
looking at the ocean. I loved it so much, and it would talk to me in that it was strange in that people I couldn't relate to people, and people generally speaking couldn't relate to me, and so I would go to the ocean and just watch the ocean, and it talked to me. At first, it seemed like it was a timepiece, and then it became kind of a language, and I ended up learning how to communicate in a weird way with the ocean
mm,
in ways that are difficult to express to people that just see waves. So I saw, something telling me something. So, um, and I could, I got really good at being able to tell you what was coming, and as
yeah.
far as
Oh, yeah.
weather and all of that, and how the waves are going to break and X, Y, and Z. And it turned out to be a beautiful thing, in that my love for the ocean uh, showed itself in many ways. I remember one time I was 10, and it was the storm of the year. My vice principal caught me ditching the second day of school of high school, and it was funny because he saw me at my sister's wedding not more than a week prior, and he comes up and he sees me, and I'm like, oh god, I knew exactly who it was. So he takes and so he was getting. I thought he was going to take me back to school, and he just keeps driving, and he goes, so what are you doing? And I said, I've been practicing. I've been all year long. I've been I've been training every day, and it's today. I mean, I hoped it would happen in the summer, but it's today, sir. And I don't mean any disrespect. I'll be back to school tomorrow. Please let me surf today. And he said, and he took me to the next bus stop to get the transfer to the next bus. Um, which saved me a lot of time. And anyways, he let me off, and he goes, "You will be at school tomorrow, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And it was beautiful. So, anyways, he lets me go down, and so I get down there. It's huge. It's massive. It just this wave that it basically froze time and everything like that, and it seemed like I was
Oh,
speaking to the universe. And at one point, it seemed like just that waves are like snowflakes, and that no two are alike, and uh,
Uh,
no,
uh,
there's no two humans alike, there's no two waves alike, and here
no,
we are in this frozen moment having a conversation. It's almost like talking to the universe, etc. And this beautiful, glorious, overblown story is that of a 10-year-old's imagination, but it seemed to me to be infinite in that
yeah,
the reverberation of that uniqueness, and that no, this will never happen exactly like this
yeah.
again, even within the rules of separation and relativity.
Oh,
So I just, it's just this story that I loved, and I get this sense um, from you, my friend, that you have this similar kind of thing about language, perhaps, that there are certain things that talk to you
mhm.
in ways that you understand, certain things that you are definitely adverse to. I mean, there are certain languages that you don't resonate with at all. Obviously, as we all have that, but it seems to me that the way I love the ocean is the way that you love many people, as it seems. And I don't know you well enough to know what that personal thing is, or that thing that resonates with you the most. Maybe it is just people and stuff, because the way you say that you love a person is kind of the way I say I love an ocean. But I also
Yeah,
um, I feel the same way, in that I'm grateful and humbled and just humbled, and I sit here in humility and gratitude that I am able to speak to you, sir, and I'm grateful for your time, your energy, your patience, and is there, is there something that speaks to you, or that you seem to resonate with, that you can share with me and the audience?
I love the surfing analogy. Um, I don't surf. My son, everyone in my family loves to surf. We live right on the ocean, and I relate to surfing in a lot of ways because, as a grandfather and father, I've watched them surf over the years. You see men my age in their old pickup watching the ocean, just watching waves, um, remembering all those pleasant moments when you disappear. Uh, I use surfing analogy a lot in the things I say. To me, it's like always surfing down this wave, this incredible, ever emerging momentary that seems to be emerging, and we're falling down the face. But it's a wave that lasts a lifetime. Uh,
Yeah.
sometimes, sometimes we can reach out and touch the curl. Sometimes we get tumbled with our face in the sand. It's just this ever emerging unknowableness. Um, we never know what's going to happen. We could die at any moment.
I
I'm
love that.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
I love that.
while we're here, look at look at the magic. Watch this. Oh, my fingers are doing that. I don't even know how they do that. Amazed, in awe at everything, amazed at our own amazement. That's the jewel. That's the
Isn't
gift.
it though?
That's the gift I get from you, Howard. Amazed.
Right back at you. Right back at you. I love your honesty. I love your the you don't let anybody or any other opinions you know uh, knock you off of how you feel about something, and
Mm.
I find that enviable, and I respect that, and I'm grateful that that I've got to know you a little better over these past couple hours, and hopefully we can continue on and
Oh,
have another talk sometime.
oh, that would be grand. The idea of weaving ourselves into each other's life and the tapestry of who we are. Part of me has become Howard. In a way, this is my Howard. My Howard exists in this, what I call the brain, as a charming, unique, beautiful world that I that I can see the light from. I can never see the world, but I can see the warmth, the gentleness, the concern for others, the desire to help others. I love that. I love first responders. I love policemen. I love everyone, really. I
Yeah.
haven't met anybody in 10 years who I didn't fall in love with.
Yeah.
See, if you see someone mean, you see a frightened little boy or a frightened little girl. It just, judgment disappears when choice disappears. No one, life is hard for everyone. I could see a mother getting frustrated when she has 3 babies and a husband who's maybe having an affair and she can't pay the bills because maybe he's drinking too much or vice versa. Life is so hard. It is.
Yeah,
But I
I've never, I feel guilty in some respects because, my life has been pretty easy comparatively to a lot of people. I'm actually very, it's hard as, and the pain and the handicaps and all of that kind of thing. And yes, I've had to work and all of that kind of stuff. But like you said, sometimes it seems odd to me that, I heard this lady say once, "Oh, you never had any kids to feed. You didn't have to worry about anybody else." And I've essentially been on my own all my life, and if I wanted to change things, I'd just pick up and change them, and that's just the way it was for me.
mm,
Whereas a lot of people, especially with children and that kind of thing, it's not so easy. You have to take these other things into consideration.
it's not easy for anybody.
Yeah, yeah.
It's to be human is the hardest job in the world, and it's also the most rewarding. It's the worst and the best life has to offer. I think seeing that is for this compassion, for lack of maybe a better word for me than love, is a compassion for other human beings. I love teenagers, but they're relatively shallow. They haven't been to war long enough. They haven't had their heart broken enough to really know pain. They haven't had a slip disc or um, they've never had a stroke. I had a stroke where I lost vision up in here. I don't see anything up in here, but the brain fills it all in. It looks like very ordinary. Well, now that I talk about it, I see a little shimmering edge here, but the brain fills in all the rest. We all have a blind spot that the brain fills in, but this huge area where the test where it shows all black up in the upper left quadrant, down like this, the brain sees everything quite normally. Although I very careful when I drive because nothing shows up over here, but the brain doesn't see that. It's filled it all in somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the fact that I lost sight because of a small blood clot to me indicates that a lot's going on in the brain. I could have lost my ability to speak. I had a client who couldn't speak anymore. He couldn't write, he couldn't communicate. And it's terribly frustrating. It's not awfully uncommon. But men, when they get this condition or through a stroke, will agonize over it. Women tend to withdraw into themselves, but men, they're tortured because you can imagine not being able to communicate.
Oh yes. Well, yeah, it's like we were saying earlier about being. It's a great time to be handicapped because or disabled because I am able to talk to so many people.
Um,
Hawking would be a good example of
uh,
I mean, can you imagine having the mind of Hawking and the body and the lack
oh,
of ability
no.
to actually communicate? And how many people throughout history have been treated like brain amped little children that have no capacity for thought and literally were thinking about the mysteries of the universe and thinking of them well, and
Yeah.
not being able to communicate. And I think about that kind of hell in that I have the opposite. I cannot complain because though I am bedridden, I have I talk to people from all over the world all the time, and for me, um, it just doesn't take much to make me happy. I mean, I tend to think of things as a totality, as every human in history. You know, people will say, for example, that the non-dual message is essentially um, not practical. And I beg to differ in that even within the appearance of time and space, if you were thinking about every human who has ever lived and who will ever live, if you teach them, or if we could have taught every human from the beginning to the end, that their reality is not objectively real, and this is why.
Mm,
Um, that is something that I believe is one of the most practical things to know about humanity or about life itself, is that it's not objectively true or real,
mhm.
and that that doesn't necessarily matter. And it's actually kind of liberating to know that there is no objective material reality to put a foundation on. And so, chase whatever you like and live your dreams and be happy, because it is just a vapor in the wind here
Mm,
today. I mean,
okay.
however this shakes out, it will do so without your permission. So you might as well
Yeah,
have a good time
yeah,
if you
yeah.
can.
Oh my gosh, yeah. To me, it feels like this crystalline awareness catching a ride on an old man's body down to the ocean, which to me symbolizes death. Um, I can see the ocean from where I sit, which is again terminology for death approaching. But I'm this crystalline agelessness housed in this old man's body who's been hard on his body. Uh, it's hard to grow up on a ranch. It's hard to be a carpenter. It's hard on your body, and I'm paying my dues now. So, but that's okay with me. It's an old man's body, but I don't feel like the body. I don't feel really like anything at all, except this crystalline
Are
perspective.
you, are you trying to say that this old hunk of coal feels like a diamond?
I am the
There you go.
precious jewel in the universe that we
That's
try to
beautiful.
change. Yeah, we want to make it better or escape it, or and all the time we're the jewel, we're the manifested jewel of the universe. A tiny glimpse of that the universe gets a beautiful and very temporary glimpse of its own beauty. Beauty exists only in us. Dogs don't stare at a waterfall or a rose. They don't. We see the beauty, and no one knows what beauty is. I don't know. I don't care. But I do. I collect cactus and succulents, and every day I go out and gaze at them. I just love them. Um, oh, what? Howard, I've enjoyed this so much. Um, I just got out of a rainbows meeting before I came here. It went over time. And I thought, oh, I will be tired. I won't have anything to say. But I've learned over the years that it all comes out easily and naturally. I never have any idea what I'm going to say. No one does. It just flows out like water. Uh, we are oases in the desert. I love you.
And I love you too. The irony of shall I say nothing, um, no thing, thinglessness, that lack of subject object,
Mm,
that placeless place where you cannot go, where no one can go, but ironically always are, is that to me, for some reason or another, that it is the nature of whatever appears to be this life, whatever appears to be this happening, this time, this now, this here and now. The lack of subject object um, is so unexplainable. Still to this day, um, as it seems, all these decades have gone by. Uh, there's still no way, and that to me is beautiful. In that I have spent the appearance of my like 45 years now trying to articulate what that little kid saw or that little kid experienced, uh,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's no way to do it. To
No,
this day, there are no words to
it's
describe.
the mind soothes itself. A broken little boy, lonely. I was that. I would soothe myself. Get through. I would get through another day, another week. Um, the pain stayed with me, and that's why I started seeking, I think. One time I had I'll make this story very short. Um,
Make it as
I
long
used
as
to,
you like, sir.
you sweetheart. I used to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with panic attacks when I was in my 40s, I guess. And I had been to therapy and AA and adult children of alcoholics. And I thought I was well on my path to healing. But I woke up with panic attacks, crawling on the floor, curled up, making little moany sounds again. And my wife would rub my back, and I didn't want her to touch me. I don't know if you're familiar with panic attacks or not, but
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
horrible. And 3 o'clock all the time. I thought, why? And I go to psychiatrists, and it helped. I love my therapists. They really helped me work through a lot. But after seemingly paying my dues and working through this, whatever it was, I woke up in the well, I went to sleep in my son's bedroom because he was at college and I missed him dreadfully. And I was safe and warm in the smell of his pillow and the trophies and stuff. So I had a vivid dream of being molested when I was 2. And all I could do, roughly 2, was say, Mommy, Mommy, Mommy. And both my parents drank. And I don't know if it was my dad or not, but it was so vivid. It was more real than any experience could it be. But I was experiencing it through a 2-year-old's mind, the helplessness,
Mm.
um, violent molestation. And I woke up in the morning and I felt a finger stroking my face, just softly stroking. I thought, well, who is that? My son is very loving. I thought it was probably my son. I thought, no, it's my wife. And I opened my eyes and it was me. I was soothing myself back into the world.
Wow.
I thought, okay, that's it. That's why the panic attacks at 3 o'clock. Um, I was ready for that healing, but the chick took another piece out of the eggshell. Uh, the mind heals itself, just like the body. Look at you, how healed you feel after the trauma of their childhood. That no one's childhood is hell. We're helpless. Uh, Anybody who makes it through childhood is a hero. Um, Especially those of us who were isolated and lonely. I went to 13 different schools. I didn't have any friends because I didn't want anybody to come home with me to my parents' house.
Mm.
So friends were either unnecessary or I wasn't open to it.
Mm.
Um, so it was lonely world. But after years, this healing, this sweet healing has come. Now I'm stroking my face again.
Mm.
Soothing. We're self-soothers. The mind heals itself just as the body does.
Yes. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And there's a great deal to be said about that aspect of our stories. Uh, now, what you just said was, I mean, that's kind of like a, you know, I don't know, it's kind of like a big old bag of fertilizer jumping right down in the middle of the living room,
Of
and
course.
saying like,
Yeah.
do you not want to talk about this? Because that's huge, and I hope, um, I don't know how real that is, or are you indicating a real scenario? Are you indicating something that you don't really know? Um,
Don't know. I don't know. I don't care. I do know that after that, After I thought, well, I'll never tell my wife because the shame.
Right,
We,
right.
children always feel ashamed themselves as if they've done something wrong and they didn't. And then after a while, after this, whatever it is, I don't even blame whoever it was. They're machinery too. They're reactive machinery. They had no choice. Chances are they were dealing with some of their own pain. I don't know and I don't care. But I do know that the emotional charge with it is gone. That's why I talk about it so easily. I don't care who knows.
Well, it's actually obviously, real enough in that,
Yeah.
much like, anybody else's childhood, like you saw, like you said, and as Pat Benatar has said, hell is for children. And yeah, it's one of those things where, well, in my experience, um, uh, what occurred just naturally put a split between me and my peers and school in general and just people altogether. Um, it just made me completely comfortable being alone ultimately.
Yeah.
Although, but I'd like to meet new people. It wasn't necessarily that I was alone, but I met new people and just wandered around, exploring different avenues of of experience. And as far as I know, with you, um, I is that something that you did as well? Like when you were able to go on your own, did you leave Montana? Did you go far away? Did you ever stay in contact with your parents? Um, how did that go when you actually became?
They died when I was young. My dad died when I was 14. We got the phone call and my mother fell to the ground and I thought, oh, he's dead. I wonder if I can have his car. That was my first thought.
Yeah.
Um, my mom died. I was closer to her when I was 18, 19, somewhere in there. And maybe, I don't know, I forgot. Maybe 20. I don't know. Anyway, young. And to be honest with you, I never think about my parents. The emotional charge of that childhood is all gone. It seems like a wonderful dream to me now. Growing up in Jackson Hole, our ranch was 18 miles from town. The nearest person was 5 miles away. So we could ride
Jackson Hole, where they go skiing. The
pristine.
skiing the
I'm
skiing
sorry.
place. Jackson Hole, where they go skiing.
Yeah, yeah,
Really? That's
yeah,
where you would have lived? Oh my gosh.
yeah. My parents had a 160-acre ranch there. And
Wow. You
uh,
gotta be kidding me.
in the summer it was a dude ranch. In the fall it was a hunting camp. And no, when I got off on my own, I was still alone. I went to, I joke, I have 4 years of college. It took me 4 years to get through a junior college. I wasn't the brightest.
Yeah.
Golden. I should have
I
never.
know a friend, it took him 14 years. he
That
was a
makes me feel
he was a
better.
professional. He was a professional student for 14 years. And the first job he got was a DJ at a strip joint.
Beautiful.
He made great money, married one of the strippers. She liked women, so she
Yeah,
would bring
who
women
doesn't?
to him all the time. It was
Yeah,
a
who doesn't
perfect
love them?
scenario.
Yeah, oh my. Yeah, I was alone in college. The first year or so, my mom never called. I never went home to see her. Didn't go home for Thanksgiving, not for Christmas. I was the guy that knew how to cook. So those of us who were lonely children, we would come over to my house and we would have Thanksgiving and Christmas because I would cook everything. I was still alone though. I met my wife. I knew her in high school, loved her, and married her. And now she's 60 years we've known each other, and I absolutely adore her. We do little things for each other. We have everything we want. We're comfortable financially, and nothing. I don't want anything, and so we do just those little things. We joke. I talk in rainbows how you can fix the toilet paper with a little. You just bend the corners over like they do in fancy hotels. So sometimes we'll do that for each other. Little things to say I love you. It's just this love has grown, and now we talk about dying. And we both hope the other one dies first, so they don't have to go through the pain of loss.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be a big one. How long have you been married?
We've known each other for 60 years, but I think we've been married for 55 or 56 years, I think. Yeah.
So did you leave Jackson Hole with her?
No, I came out my last 2 years. My mom bought a house in Hemet because that's where my grandmother lived. So I came out to Jackson Hole to live in Hemet, which is a desert town. It gets 120 degrees there. I hated it. So, and my mom spent most of the time in Wyoming, and I was alone in the house, and again, a lonely child. And so my wife asked me to dance at a backwards dance once or something, and oh, she was a cheerleader, exquisitely beautiful. And I fell in love with her when she was 16. We got married when she was 18. And
Wow.
it's I call it the day I stepped out of the shadowland, the day I married her. And a little son came along who is taught me how to be a father. I didn't know, but he taught me. Life rounds itself out. I look at you and I think, oh, Howard, he glows. You don't complain. You don't, no whining. You're just a joy. And
Well, I appreciate that very much. Yeah, it's I don't complain as long as somebody doesn't try to move me. As soon as you try to move me,
you
I,
watch out.
I mean, it's not real, but I'm gonna complain. It's
Oh,
not
no,
actual, but you're gonna hear some grumbling.
no, it's
As
painful.
long, yeah, as long as you don't try to move me, I'm fine.
You're fine.
Um, yeah,
You sweetheart.
yeah, I've got all kinds of things going on that end, but yeah, there's anyhow, let me see here. Now, it's true that that's the exploding rainbows is at from 5 to 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, right?
I think so. It's from 2:30 Pacific time.
Okay,
Uh,
so 5:30 to 6:30,
I
Monday
guess.
through Friday.
I guess. Yeah, I can't think in those terms. I'm all left-handed. I don't know, whatever the non-thinking part of the brain is. I live on the artistic side.
And from what I understand, you guys have anywhere from 6 to 10, 12 people there a day.
Yeah, it's not too many. Most there's very little over talking. It's gentle group. It's a comfortable, incredibly. We had 2 new people today, which was kind of strange. We both all fell in love with them. A lot of people who are on the edge, who may think they're going crazy, who have ventured to the edge only to find out that nobody lives there. There's nothing over the edge.
Right.
It's the edge of objectification.
Right.
Oh, I'm good, love. Thank you. That was the lady I was talking about, seeing if I had eaten enough. You are just
Lucky.
She threw it in sure. Just barely missed me. No, kidding. Yeah, it's a secret group. Anybody would be inclined to join, if they friend me, I can sneak them in the back door. No, I just if Michael Markham, I'm on Facebook, and if they friend me, they can always unfriend me if they don't like me.
Right. Right.
But I could get them in rainbows, and they could see. It was Nancy started it primarily for people who have ventured to the edge of the known world, which is for us the edge of objectification, beyond which naming doesn't exist. And actually, there's nothing out there anyway, for us anyway, nothing we can ever know. And so, well, nothing. But those people who think they may be going crazy a little bit, because this is scary stuff. This is
Well,
not.
on that level, could I ask you one more question, and it might not be something that we can answer this time, but maybe start with the next conversation if I was so lucky to have another conversation with you. Um, is no hyphen thing nothing necessarily? Is no thing necessarily nothing?
Oh no, there's no such thing as nothing. Um, it's just another concept for the absence of things that don't exist. Um, since nothing exists, there cannot be the absence of things. Um, it's a contradiction in terms, really.
So
Nothing
it would be
assumes
no
the
thing
presence
is
of
actually
things that
nothing.
never actually existed. Oh, I cut off the sound. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yes. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Could you hear that whole thing?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes.
sir. I'm sorry. I interrupted you a little bit, but because what you said was brilliant. Because instead of saying everything is nothing, well, there is nothing. It's essentially no thing looking as if it is nothing. Because nothing is everything, and there's actually nothing.
You can't say
So
that either.
you can actually just say it's no thing. And but I think I understand what you mean. And what I'm trying to allude to is within the context of a Q&A or the context of a conversation. Um, no hyphen thing is not necessarily nothing. Is essentially what it's alluding to are those subjects that don't apply to objects, and objects or explainable mediums. But you answered it perfectly. No thing is essentially all there is.
Well, it's the imaginary absence of things that don't exist. Um, that whole sentence, I think, is the only explanation for nothing. There are no things to not exist. Something that never existed cannot not exist. So nothing is just another concept that imagines the absence of things, but it in that process becomes a thing itself.
Right.
All things, including nothing, refer back to themselves. It's a circular world.
Yeah.
Everything refers. I'm sorry.
No. I'm sorry. I'm kind of trying to be your cheerleader, and I'm interrupting you instead. I'm
You.
sorry. I'm in the background going, yeah. And I'm just trying to.
A chorus.
I'm actually, yeah. It's the. I'm the support singer in the background. Do what? Yeah, I agree with you. In fact,
Oh,
it's almost as if that's even, in all honesty, the most probably the most accurate way to say it, and that no thing is just the illusion of the absence of objects, and that dimensionality itself is incorrect in the first place. And
uh,
and it doesn't really, I'm not getting into a big, I don't want to, a lot of people will say, well, it's philosophical, and it's like, for me, no, not necessarily. It is just what it is. I mean, I don't see what is happening as dimensional, and it's not a philosophy. It literally shows itself to be non-dimensional. It is the appearance of a dimension without its objectification. And so and everything about separation, everything about testable science indicates that, which is just fun in a playground, but also just every indication from beyond that subject object, all the language that has anything to do with non-duality, or what have you, uh, indicates that really this is truly it's not a dimensional kind of reality. It's not a subject object. It's not a thing. It's not something that can be spoken of. It truly is. It's remarkable in its lack of ability to remark on, and that, I think, is kind of what fascinates me about it is that there is no discernible. It's not a question or an answer. It's not a position to defend or attack, because none of that really exists. It's just the playing with the magic of it, in that there's nothing wrong or right, and there's nothing correct or incorrect. Questions and answers don't really exist, but you can play with them to see what they show you. And as long as you're not looking for answers, I see no, no harm in playing with the appearance of such. And ultimately, you end up where you were basically alluding to. You end up, it sounds ridiculous, but it is ultimately accurate. That it's not that there are even no things. It
Mm,
is the appearance of the absence of things because of the illusion of a dimension in the first place. An
mm.
individual that is navigating a time and a place. Now that may seem like a bunch of gibberish, but and maybe it is, but it doesn't mean it's not accurate. And on
um,
that note, I would just like to say, um, it's almost that you can't be wrong in a sense. There is no, because there is no right or wrong. You can't be wrong about any of this because it is what you are speaking. I mean, you are what it is.
oh gosh. I think if you were in your dream at night and if you were to say it's all dream, that too would become part of the dream. And for us, we are the dream that we imagine we can transcend. And for years, many years, they've talked as if this was a dream. It's an analogy, but it's the closest thing that comes to our condition. We are being dreamt. We are not the dreamers. Um,
Yeah, I like to say we are expressions of the totality. uh yeah, we are being
of the
expressed rather
imaginary.
than, yeah, we
Yeah.
cannot express ourselves, but we are being expressed.
Yeah,
As beings that express
we are
ourselves.
expressions of the imaginary totality.
Yes.
Imaginary expressions of the imaginary. Oh boy, we're getting deeper.
We're going into quadruple negatives.
Yeah.
We're going into quadruple negatives in one sentence.
Oh, well, that's a good way to wrap it up. I
Yeah,
don't.
that's right.
Is this too
Hey.
long for? Is there a limit on YouTube time? Do they have a 2 hour YouTube?
Yeah, well, it's 2 hours and 22 minutes, and I say that it's been a great time,
Oh my
and
God.
I hope that we can do this again. Could I call you in say a month or so and plan for another meeting sometime?
Oh, I would love that. I
Well, let's
would.
do it.
There's no end. I just.
I really do appreciate your time, your energy, your patience, your
Uh,
kindness, and I am truly honored and humbled that we were able to share this time, and you've given me this your patience, and I'm grateful to you.
Usually when people say something like that, the only thing I can think of is I think he does it with mirrors. Um, I think he does it with mirrors. We're mirrors for each other.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
absolutely.
No,
Yeah, the only problem is that there's no actual
yeah.
image in the first place. There's just the reflection.
Yeah. Isn't that the no one knows what happens with light between mirrors. Does it bounce back and forth? Somebody wrote that they've discovered that it bounces back and forth 800,000 times.
Well, the beautiful thing about the speed of light, and that I'd like to say on this going out the door is that we only know the speed of light in one direction. We don't know it going. So the beautiful thing about
Yeah.
it is that the speed of light could be uh, going in one direction and then instantaneous coming back. The Einstein prefaced E equals
Yeah.
mc squared with such things, and that
Yeah.
this is the assumption that the speed of light is constant, and we
Yeah.
can't know that. There's no way to measure it in a constant
No.
state.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really beautiful that the entire universe of causality is based on an assumption, much
Yeah.
like everything else. The
Just
brain,
like everything else we
yeah,
know.
perception, memory, it's all an assumption.
Yeah.
And from nowhere that we can place an objective reality. And Hawking, Penrose, Einstein, any theoretical physicist worth their salt will
Mm.
preface any explanation of reality with with that assertion that this is not about reality. This isn't about a possible agreement that reality may be kind of like if we both assume that it starts from this suggested
Yeah,
spot. But
yeah,
there is no material reality to that spot. It's just a possible reality from
yeah,
where something began.
yeah,
And so there is no tether to an objective reality,
yeah.
even from the staunchest, even from the most brilliant minds the world has ever known, that their job is to tell you what the objective truth is about
Yeah,
a material reality, and they will tell you the first truth is there is no truth. There is
yeah,
no objective reality
yeah,
in an objectively real sense. And so
yeah.
I think that for the one person, an individual, that might not seem very big, but if you
Huge.
overlay that through the entire species,
Yeah,
from the first human to the last, that they will not know an objective realism or an
yeah,
objective truth
yeah.
ever,
Ever.
then looking at it from that perspective, it is far more practical to at least explore the fact that you may not be thinking and there may not be a brain. And
Yeah.
then if you don't, you have to believe a story in order to.
Yeah. It's just a story. For us, it's all stories. I think somehow this whatever mentation can turn on itself and see that there's nothing there. And I don't know how that happens. It's been lovely, Howard. Um, it time flies. I thought I had no idea it was 2 hours and 27 minutes.
2 hours and 27 minutes. Beautiful.
Can you
This
imagine
is.
somebody sitting through this whole thing?
I'll tell you what. You'd be surprised at the people that do.
Oh, really?
Oh my God, it's funny because I don't have a big audience, but I do have the people that do watch. You know, a lot of them are very dear friends,
Yeah,
and
oh, that's
but
wonderful.
the funny thing is that the ones that surprised me were some of the more prominent speakers, or the more popular speakers. They
Wonderful.
tell me that they like to watch the ones with just the regular people in them.
Mixing it
Uh,
up. Yeah, setting at
well,
the pub.
it's complete. You never know what you're going to get, and an individual is such a rare egg. I mean, there's no two alike, just like a whale or a
No,
snowflake. And so
no.
it's fun to get that, even though it might not have anything to do with non-duality, it might not have anything to do with anything in particular, but just to get that perspective from the individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. And some of the I was taken back last week by a couple of speakers that told me that no, I like the one. They told me, yeah, I love what you've been doing. I was like, really, you watch my stuff? And
Ah,
yeah, I love it. I love the one where this guy or that guy, and they picked out all the ones where it's just completely anonymous people, and they said those are their favorites. And these people they didn't know each other, and it was completely two totally different stories of two totally different speakers telling me the same thing. Where I was really just happy to be talking to them, and
oh,
they were saying, no, I love it. And so I'm glad. Basically, what turned out to what was just an idea um, about just reaching out and communicating with individuals rather than them coming to me going to them. And
yeah. Oh, wonderful.
yeah, it turned out. Yeah, it's actually pretty neat to have that happen. And I just want to say again, I'm gonna let you go this time. I really
Uh,
appreciate you, Michael. And
uh,
let's do it again in about a month. What do you think?
oh, that would be wonderful. I will look forward to that.
Thanks, Michael. I'll talk to you soon, and thank you again, sir.
Well, thank you, sir. Good
All right,
night.
buddy. Good night. Have a good one. Love
Ah,
you, man.
I love you, man.